So welcome back to another Young Blooms tutorial. I actually filmed this interview last week, and we interviewed during a sort of torrential downpour, which was quite fun. But it's just a really interesting interview. So I'm talking to Tom Bowles, who is essentially my landlord, but he is the brains behind Hartley Farm Shop where I'm based, and I've been here for I don't know 10, 12 years. And it's home, it's my working community, it's where my company is based. I have a workshop which you're not allowed to see because it's an absolute tip. But it is home, my working home. So I just thought chatting to him would be a really valuable thing, just to hear some of his experiences, where he's come from, how he's coping with the climate, the current climate that we're in. Because I think there's bits that we can, he has a business that's triple the size of mine, but some of the stuff is very similar. Some of the struggles, some of the, the thoughts and ideas that he has are similar to what, and the experiences are similar to what I'm going through. So just encourage you, listen to it, see what you can take from it, and I really hope you enjoy it. But as always, thank you so much for all the new subscribers coming on board. Lovely to have you here, and lovely to get comments and likes to each of the videos. Really appreciate that. And YouTube is something I'm really enjoying. Doing this growing this YouTube channel is something that I'm really enjoying. So sit back, grab a cup of tea, and enjoy the interview. And I just kind of thought, I've done a couple of interviews with random people that are either in the creative industry or people that just interest me, a couple of coaches, life coaches. And I just kind of thought it'd be fun, more personally for me, in that people can understand where I'm based and what it's like, but also that you're a very interesting person in yourself. And I don't think you and I take a compliment.
Thank you for saying so.
I don't think you and I have ever sat down and done something like this before.
No, it's usually racing past each other and
yeah. Can I have this, or have you got this, or have you seen this? Well, so I kind of thought it'd be fun, and I'm just interested in how things are going for you in this weird and strange time. But I just wondered if you could give me a small intro into some of your backstory, because I've seen bits on the website, and I've probably talked to your parents and over bottles of wine, but it'd be really lovely to just, if you can kind of give a bit of history of who you are and where you've come from.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, I haven't come from very far from where I am now, physically and geographically.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've where I am now at Hartley Farm is where I was born and raised. So dad and mum took on our farm, which was next door to where they grew up, where dad grew up actually.
Okay.
And I was born here in mum and dad's house, in the farmhouse. Not actually in the farmhouse, in a local hospital, but I was born and raised here. Went to school in Bath. I always sort of loved my job when I was growing up was always on the farm. My mates always had jobs in shops and and what have you. I was always just any spare hours was working on the farm. I loved it. I was also forced to do that, but
we know your father.
Luckily, I enjoyed it. So that was my sort of childhood, really. After uni, I did a bit of traveling. Just the standard sort of conveyor belt of traveling when But after traveling, I went to university. So even though I loved the farming, dad always sort of said, look, we were in the sort of commercial style of farming, pigs farming and arable farming, and there wasn't really much future there. So he never really he always encouraged me to sort of do what I wanted to do. I always felt like, I probably still feel like now I don't really know what I want to do, but this is what I'm doing. So I went off to Cardiff and I studied economics, and along with all the sort of economic stuff. So it was quite a broad course, which I think was quite useful in the end.
Okay.
And then after uni, so that was always the intention, was to kind of, I don't know, do the London thing, go to London, try and find a job that suited my degree of economics. So I think I came out of uni in 2007. So literally that next year was the 2008 crash. So all of my kind of schoolmates who'd gone in and found jobs in the city and whatever, they suddenly found themselves without a job, like within 6 months to a year. So luckily I didn't do that. I mean, I met my now wife, Taz, at uni. So our intention was to go traveling after uni. But I got bored. So I was waiting for her for a year to finish. I got bored in that year and started up the farm shop. And here we are, 13 years later. Sorry?
Is that really what happened?
Yeah, absolutely.
And started a farm shop?
Yeah. I got bored waiting for her to finish and started the business. And by the time I'd started it, it was too late to go travelling. So.
Oh my gosh, that's utterly genius. I love that. I got bored and I started a farm shop.
Obviously, farming has always been like a big part of my life, so I was interested in that because mum and dad ran the farm, and so you're involved in every single aspect of a small business, and I love that. The different days and the different tasks they get thrown at you.
Involving you in decision making when you were growing up, or because I mean, I grew up with a family. All my brothers are self-employed, so for me, it was a kind of natural. I knew I want to have my own business at some point. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that would be my end game.
Yeah.
Was that something that you kind of, I guess you didn't so much, I don't know. I mean, I did music at university, so I'm a florist. How does that work?
Yeah. I think, I mean, I was immersed in it. So, I don't know whether they put decisions on it, on my plate or not, but I was involved in all the conversations. Dad and I would be firing off to builders merchants and to, off to vets and all that sort of stuff. And, that fast paced running your own business, decisions need to be made on the fly. People need to be sorted. That was all kind of natural instinct, really.
Yeah.
I was very, very much a part of that culture. And I remember thinking at that time, when I was a bit older, but still at school, that I loved that. I love that kind of, the challenge that every day brings. I could never sit down and do the same thing day in, day out. It would drive me insane. Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
And the ability, I always find that interesting because I think a lot of people say to me, it must be wonderful to play with flowers. And you think, you don't bloody know half of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it must be the same for you, that people go, oh my gosh, you have an empire, you're running this great business. And you think, get lost.
I mean, it's funny. I mean, I probably got into, the farming was always part of me. Mum was always, massively into her food. I remember watching all the sort of food programs with her when I was growing up. She was a great cook. So there was this foodie element to me as well. And as I got older, I loved going to farmers markets. So that was where the idea for the farm shop came. Mm-hmm. And that was where I got into it because I thought, let's, create a business that's all about great food. And like you say, that's not even half of it. It's not that at all. It's,
Oh, that's good. Because I mean, so we did not business management, but he was a coach. He kind of worked with us for about 3 days, looking at our business. We're right back in the beginning, and he was the one that said to us, "I think you need to go and find a farm shop to attach yourself to, because they're up and coming. They're the place where people will be going." And I think you were literally the first one that we phoned up and said, "Can we sell some flowers at your place, please?"
Yeah.
And it started from there, and I know having a floristry school that now out of the school, I think there's probably 4 or 5 new businesses that have started. And it's kind of encouraging them as they grow. Where do they move to? Do they stay at home and work from home? Is that the best option? Or do they sort of start attaching themselves to comparable businesses? Because I know with Instagram and stuff, there's a lot of, because florists have had to basically, for a period of time, shut doors and work in a non-contactless sort of fashion. A lot of attach themselves to, so there's one selling flowers with a coffee company, there's one selling flowers with a makeup company, and they're sort of doing joint offers. Yeah, I won't be going, but it just now, it would be interesting just to think about small businesses, and especially in the light of COVID, to find a stable place from which they can work and grow from. It's just an interesting question, really.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think that's the case. Even for us, making sure that we are, partnering with the right kind of businesses and complementing. And if we're not convenient where we are. We're not, in terms of our location. We're not off a really, really busy road. We're not on the side of a massive city. You've got to drive to find us. And so if we can make that that pull as compelling as possible. And that's the same, you know, no matter what market you're selling in, you've got to try and keep just looking at, okay, what else can I do to solve our customers' problems? What else can I do to make our proposition, you know, more compelling? And you know, that kind of, it's particularly true with small businesses like ourselves, where you can be a bit more flexible and you can think a little bit more outside the box. But these sort of partnerships, I see sort of more and more, really, these collaborations. And yeah, I just think that those sorts of things make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a real pull for me with my couples, you know, you know, brides and grooms, that we can sit in your cafe and have a coffee and I can talk about the business in it, your business, in a sense, you know, that the small businesses that are around and attached to you guys. It does make for a compelling story. And I think it's definitely something that people buy into because they like the, you know, the atmosphere, they like the feeling of this place. Was that something that you just learned, you know, in terms of, or did people like us just phone you up and go, right, we're coming in? What do you think?
I think we probably always understood it, but I don't think it was part of the original business plan. But they're saying that, you know, the original business plan lasted about a day, and then we were entering something completely different than we thought. Yeah. But you know, as time went on, it became obvious that was a great way for us to grow. You know, and become a bit of a hub for. I mean, you know, there's a number of businesses that have either started or have moved to us as their first sort of big move away from their garage or their living room or whatever.
Yeah.
And I love that. You know, I love it, small business. I love, you know, I love that kind of the, you know, the dynamic nature of starting a small business and being able to provide a place for them to kind of set their roots and grow is really great to see, to be honest. So yeah, I don't know whether it was part of the original plan, but it quickly became important to us that, you know, that we could do that.
Yeah. And I definitely think for us as a business, or for me as a business, the high street more and more is, as a florist, is becoming a slightly terrifying place. And I was reading something this morning that some of the predictions are that there's 80,000 florists in Europe. You know, if we're included in that at the moment, something like 40,000 will go as a result of COVID. And so you think, crikey, with the high street, how will that work? And I think that's the one thing that I really enjoy about is that it's a working community in a sense. You know, people know you.
Yeah, I think so. I read an article that was sent to me recently that it was based in America, but the same kind of premise is true here. I think that this will, you know, obliterate a lot of businesses in a lot of different industries. I was speaking to my cousin Simon, who has his teepee business here, you know, yesterday, you know, and he's saying the same in his industry, that, you know, that there's no weddings, there's no events this summer. And those that have got those big overheads that have been built on the fact that as soon as, you know, whatever it is, April, May comes along, you are working your socks off for every penny, because, you know, by the time October comes around, you'll be quiet and haven't got that money coming in this summer. There's nothing to do about it. And I think, you know, high streets and a lot of other businesses, there's going to be a huge change on the horizon, and it's a shame. But I think if you look at it long term, businesses will leave the high streets. You'll probably see more people leave city centres, but then that will create a void and a vacuum, and perhaps drive the price of renting high street stores down. You know, that might flood the high street with, you know, young entrepreneurs, innovative, you know, young businesses that can actually afford to take the risk on these sort of places now, because, you know, looking at starting a business on the high street now, it's just crazy, the rates and the rent that people are asking for. So, you know, maybe 3-4 years time, that might be a good thing. We might see a bit more diversity on the high street again. I don't, you know, it'll be interesting to see what the long shot of it is, really.
So if we were to go back to the start of jolly old pandemic, are you a fan of, you know, without like the kind of storm, without using swear words, because I think we were all swearing like blue murder at the start of this. I know for me, it was probably like, I basically watched my industry collapse over the space of, I don't know, probably a week of just day after day after day of things closing, things not available. Holland stopped. You know, my wholesalers stopped trading. Weddings started not cancelling, but postponing, all that kind of stuff. And I think I allowed myself I have a business coach, and allowed myself 2 weeks of feeling grumpy about this. And then I knew at that point, then I had to start making plans accordingly. I mean, you being a lot bigger than myself, are you able to reflect back on that now, of how you dealt with the initial fallout?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to be worse when there's things that I can't do much about, or if it's in the future, I worry a lot. Whereas if you're presented with a problem here and now, there's nothing to do but tackle it. And I mean, it will go down in my memory for a long, long time. On the 16th of March, Boris announced that people should avoid cafes. 17th of March, my birthday, I spent the whole day in tears with my team. You know, we've got 2 big cafes. You know, they employ 60 odd people.
Yeah.
Just meeting all of our key team members, just to say we don't have work for you. This was before they announced all the furlough stuff.
Yeah.
And it was devastating. One of the hardest days of my professional career, for sure. But after I had dealt with it, I mean, everyone was obviously so understanding, and so we've got an amazing team and so supportive. And luckily, we've been able to. I hate this word because you see it all the time now. Pivot, pivot our business, and you know, and try and keep hold of some people, but unfortunately, not everyone. That was harrowing. That was horrible. That was the hardest thing, and I will remember that for a long time. But dealing with it quickly and clearly with people allowed me to kind of take that weight off my shoulders again, and then try and think clearly about, okay, what's tomorrow got in store. I mean, our business has grown massively, but we've also had a bit of a challenging year, because I mean, must be some sort of record, but 4 of our key staff, as for 4 senior members of staff, have all been off on maternity leave. And so I have been like a blue ass fly for the last
There's
year.
something in the water, Tom.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what we're doing here, but but it's, you know, it's just one of those things. For some reason, I'd always thought to myself, you know, this could be an issue coming up in the next year or 2, and it turns out it was. So I was at a stage in the business where I couldn't see the sort of wood from the trees a lot of the time. You know, I was running around at different meetings, so it was a horrible situation to deal with, but it also allowed me just to put the brakes on things a little bit and just try and work out, okay, how do we get out of this? Out of this mess. So if something else had happened, but our business was still operating as it was, I would have struggled back massively. But it did provide, you know, the handbrake that I desperately needed to kind of to take a fresh look at the business and work out how we're going to go through it. So it's been bittersweet for sure.
Yeah, it is. I think that's the really interesting thing, isn't it, of looking back and seeing actually what it's allowed you to do. Because I guess I'm probably quite a glass half full most of the time. But I think when you're hit with things like this, you definitely need people. I know for me, my husband is one of my biggest supporters, and just being able to go to him and offload and say, what do you think? I don't necessarily need solutions from him, but just to be a sounding board of kind of, do you have, I mean, do you and your wife, do you and Saz just have endless conversations, or do you tend to not talk about work at home?
No, we do. I mean, I'm sometimes, if I'm a bit stressful from a day's work, I'll come back and I'll probably either take it out on her or bottle it up. So it's not always best. And, you know, and the problem we've got 2, you know, young kids, Isla and Henry, 7 and 5. And so they were obviously taken out of school. So she, you know, she had, she took on that side of things, because she was working in the business a bit more. So that obviously had to stop. So, you know, Tamara had the whole challenge of setting up the homeschool and looking after the kids as well. So it was tricky, but we do talk, and mum and dad are involved in the business, the farm shop business, you know, as a kind of almost like a non-exec role, where they're here for sort of help and advice, and that kind of that support network of Taz and mum and dad. You know, there was daily conversations, right? Okay, what we're going to do next? What do we need? And that, I mean, always talking to people, you know, people that understand your position, people that have experience. It's, you know, there's no substitute for that. Really.
No, absolutely. I know you've had some coach. Did you do coaching?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. A few years ago, I had a great business coach, probably a couple of years worth. I worked with him. I've had a couple of conversations with him over the lockdown period. He's always been there. A couple of other small business owners that I've built a bit of a relationship with over the years. Just to sort of, everyone's in it together kind of attitude.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing. This is what you should, what you could do.
Yeah.
Those conversations have been valuable.
Yeah. Welcome. That was mightily interesting.
Absolutely, thoroughly enjoyable.
Yes, and thanks for chatting. But thank you for your time.
No, thank you very much for asking me, Grace. It's been a pleasure.
Cool.